one of the many tragedies of his passing is that I thought he was on a roll, like as a DJ and a producer, and his best stuff was coming, you know.
Yeah.
I listened back to that Qualia album, and it's amazing. It's as good as anything else he ever did, and his sets were just as mind-blowing as the first time I heard him. And I think it's, you know, I know there's a lot of music still to.
He was working on so much stuff. The week that he passed away, Nina Walsh, his studio partner, called me and said, on Friday we finished an album of tracks that we'd made just purely to play A Love from Outer Space, and there's 12 tracks and they're all absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And there's stacks and stacks of it. They've been working so hard for the last year. He'd not done any more remixes and really focused on, you know, producing their own stuff, and it really, like Justin said, it's some of the most amazing work that he's ever done.
Because I've kind of been continuously working and making music, I don't think I've ever had that situation where I get to the studio and it's day one, I must make an album, because that's any musician or artist will tell you that's too much. That's the most daunting. It's why people get writer's block. The way I work, I might find a certain sound, or I might use a certain keyboard or a certain drum machine or a certain way of working, and you start making tracks. I spend a couple of weeks making tracks with a certain way, and then after a while, you know, and you may put that, you may not get bored, but you may get sidetracked, or I may have a couple of days off, or I'm not really feeling it. So you'll put them aside in the computer somewhere. Then maybe you come back and you start listening to tracks and you think, all right, okay, that kind of sounds like the beginning of a body of work. That sounds like the beginning of another body of work. And that's when you start shaping it. So I've found a certain way of working, which I don't like giving the details, because it kind of, it's the same way I don't want to know how the lady's sawn in half or how you pull a rabbit out of a hat. It kind of spoils the magic a little bit for me, I think, if you know how the spell is put together. So I don't usually like to go too much into the technicalities of it, but I found a certain method of working, and it just kind of snowballed from there. You know, I was going in every day. I'm not one of these people that work through the night, because it's a false economy, because you just start, you know, the next day you go in and you've just lost any idea of where you're going. So I usually work from kind of 11 or 12 till 6 or 7 at night. So I was doing, you know, almost like a kind of office job, really. And just these tracks kind of started to develop a certain way. So maybe sort of 4 or 5, 6 tracks in, you've got a file, and so then you start kind of honing it. You start thinking. That's when you start thinking about it a little bit, to try and make things fit in a little bit.
We just sort of got there and made stuff and had no plan for any of it.
Right.
Which is why we've ended up with so many folders of finished mixes that were eventually put into a for sale folder. So we were gradually getting them out there.
Once they were done, they were done.
They were done, yeah.
Right.
They were done. And then there wasn't always a complete album, so we'd wait until we had enough tracks where that common thread was running through them and go, right, there's an album.
You know, rather than a random collection of tracks, you know, I like there to be some kind of thread or some kind of identity to it, rather than now here's my electro track, now here's my house track, or here's my ambient track. Or if you are doing that, if you are working across styles, there's still got to be some common sort of thread to it. I mean, although I've worked in I've released many records stylistically different, I can still see a thread in it. I'd like to think I could recognise my own, you know, my work if I was, you know, looking at it objectively.
So much of it came out of his willingness to work closely with someone else.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, I mean, I think as I wrote last week, you can hear his ears, that he could hear the skills of someone, whether it's Hugo Nicholson, whether it's Nina.